Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. So today we are going to discuss one more interesting React interview problem which is around creating a custom hook on use interval. So without any further delay, let's get started. So today's problem area as we discussed is about creating a custom hook named use interval, and it should take two parameters by default as is in the setInterval API. The first parameter is the callback function and the second parameter is the delay parameter. And how it should work is like after each delay that the delay parameter instructs, the callback method should be fired or should be executed, right? So to proceed with, we will discuss the problem around three areas. The first area would be the challenges with set interval, like what are the problems or what are the challenges which we might encounter when we use set interval and React together. Second is our approach to the solution, like how we can approach to our solution to solve or to mitigate the problems which we discussed in step one. And lastly, we will refactor our code to create a custom hook based on our solution so that we can use it across our projects or across our components, right? So this problem largely similar the same concept which we discussed in our yesterday's video, which was use timeout. So if you haven't watched that, I would definitely recommend to please go ahead and watch our last video as well, which was on creating a custom hook on use timeout. So the underlying problem remain the same, like how React works and how browser APIs works. So we will understand the same concept today in this video as well. So I hope we should get started. So as part of the code setup here, I have two counter states initialized with 0, right? So one is count and one is state. And we have two use effect here, which are incrementing the count after 1 second. So count state is getting incremented and the other state which is named as state itself, that is also incremented after 1 second. So we can see that here in the browser as well. So right now we have left the dependencies to be like the dependency array is not defined, which means that on every re-render our use effect is getting fired or our use effect is getting triggered on every re-render of the component, which means that whenever we are basically incrementing the count, whenever we are incrementing the state for both of these state variables, then our use effect gets fired or gets triggered and the earlier timer gets reset and new timer gets registered in the browser for both of the use effect at the same time because both have the similar delay. And here we are showing the state, whatever is the latest state. So we can see that these are getting incremented after a delay of 1 second. So let me refresh it one more time. And here, as we see, both are moving parallelly or both are moving at the same time or both are incrementing with the same value. So now let's discuss the problem. What's the problem here? Cool. So for that, let me try to change the time for second use effect. So right now it's incrementing with 1 second after a gap of 1 second. Let me change it to half of a second, 0.5 second, right? And here also I save it to like change it to 5 and I save my page and refresh here. Cool. So this state is getting incremented after a half of second. So this is incremented fast. But what happened to this count? This is not even getting rendered or basically not even getting triggered even once. So here we have asked this count to increment after 1 second, but this is not at all working, and that we can ensure by log as well. Console log hello world increment count and refresh. So this state is getting incremented. The control is coming here, but JavaScript is not able to reach this inside this function. So our count is not incrementing even of once. What's the reason for that? So let me explain that to you. So the reason for that is here we have not defined the dependency array. right? Which we discussed at the start of the video. And because of that, our use effect gets re-triggered or gets rendered as soon as component re-render, and the component is getting re-rendered here at the after every half a second or at 500 milliseconds. So when state gets updated after half a second, then this use effect also gets triggered, and when this use effect gets triggered, our last timer gets cleared or our last timer gets reset, and a new timer gets registered with a gap of 1 second, and then it is waiting for 1 second to complete. But in the meantime, this half second gets completed again, and this gets reset again. So this is never getting a chance to run even of once, right? And that we can ensure vice versa as well. So right now, let me change it to 2000 seconds. So this counter will increment after 2000. Here I change it to 2000, 2 second basically, and I think we are looking good here now. Let me refresh the screen here. Now this will increment, but this will never get a chance to increment because now this is incrementing after 1 second, and because of that, this timer gets cleared. Because of that, this timer gets cleared, and a new timer gets registered. And till the time it is waiting for its turn to come, this callback is waiting for its turn to come. React again re-render. So this state gets updated again, and this goes clearing the timer for this use effect as well. So basically, inside React, we might have this situation where one state update is affecting the functioning of the other use effect or other intervals, basically is impacting the efficient functioning of the other set intervals. So we cannot rely on this particular approach when we are working inside React, that our timer or our callback will be fired exactly at the given delay. So that is one issue, right? Now, how do we fix that? What we can do to fix this particular problem? So one thing which might come to our mind is that, let me change it back to 0.5 s only. Yeah, so we are here. So one thing which may come to our mind that, okay, let's define the dependency array here. Good. So we will define the dependency array. That means my this callback should fire, or this my use effect should fire when any of my dependency changes. Though here I haven't defined the dependency here, which we will define later. But before we reach there, I want to discuss one more problem. So be with me for some time. So give some attention here, right? So I haven't defined the dependency here, and when I will refresh the screen here, so here our use effect is, it should ideally get incremented by 1, but it's not coming. What's the issue? What can be the issue here? So I guess our file was not saved. So when I defined my dependency to be empty array, and if I refresh my screen, so here it incremented by after 1 second, but it is not incremented afterwards. So its value hold to one only, gets hold to one only. But if we log it here, console.log increment count, we will see that this function is getting triggered multiple times. So this 3, 4, 5. So the control is coming here after every second. The control is coming after every 1,000 the timeout or the delay, but the value is one only. Value is not incrementing. So that is the problem. Even if we define the dependency array to be empty, that are this use effect does not get impacted by the outer state of the React. Whatever is outside of this use effect, it is not impacted by that. And and because of that, our state is one only here. And the reason for that is because we have not defined the dependency here on the count. What React does is when it executes the callback or when it registers that callback, right? Then it says that, then it sees that, okay, I have referenced a count variable inside my code or inside my callback. Then React create a closure internally, and whatever the variables are used inside the callback, it retains a reference, the value of those variables as a reference. So when we basically register the callback for the very first time, it sees that we have a count variable inside the callback, and React internally creates a closure with the value of 0, which is the value on the page load. And after 1 second, when our control reaches here, it is 0 plus 1. Then again, every time it is 0 plus 1 only, because when the callback gets registered, the value of the count was 0 only. So that is why it is always 0. And that we can see here as well. Value of count is count. So I refresh the screen here. The value of count is 0. So the value of count is always 0 here, because the closure which React created around the callback of use effect, it has a value of count as 0 only always. So how this can be solved? If I define the dependency here, if I define the dependency here on the count, then this should work fine, right? So now this is getting incremented after every half a second, and this is getting incremented after every 1 second. And now you can see, because we have defined the dependency on count, whenever the state of the count changes, React clears the last render. Basically, React clears the last callback which is there inside use effect, and register a new callback. And when it register a new callback, it register the latest value of the account. It register the latest value of the account, which will be always be the last updated value. And here, by this method, we are ensuring the count is referring to the last updated value only. And with that, we can see here that it is working fine. But the next problem, if my use effect, this use effect depends on the state of some other state which is inside this component. For an example, state here, and I am actually doing state plus 1. Cool. And let me remove that, because here it has a reference to count. Now what should be the situation? It again failed. So basically, if my use effect is depending on any other state in the component which is getting updated too frequently, then my this use effect, or basically my set interval inside this use effect, is not even getting a chance to re-render, or is not even getting a chance to execute, because here it is getting updated after every half a second, and it is timed, or it is bound to run after every 1 second. And because this state is getting updated, and we have a dependency on the same variable or on the same state, it is causing our timer to be clear after every half a second. So it is not even getting a chance to render. And it is a very practical real life problem that we might have interdependency in our project when we are having a set interval, or maybe the set time out as well for that matter, where our set time out is using a state which is outside the use effect, or outside the component. Basically it is some other state inside that component itself. Then it can cause problem that my use effect, or my set timeout, or my set interval does not get executed at the given interval, or we can have unpredicted behavior or unpredictable values as the outcome from that. So to fix all these problems, we need some solution which can work well with React and the browser APIs. And the underlying problem is, because what React ensures is, that says whenever the state changes, and the state can be the internal state of the component, or the state coming from the parent as part of props. So React says whenever the state changes, I am bound to display the latest values in the UI here in the render phase, and as part of the hooks as well. So whenever the state changes, React says I will trigger the callbacks based on the dependency hook, dependency array, and I will clear the last render cycle, and will register a new callbacks which works, or which sets the new state based on the new values which we have. And browser API says is when a callback is registered, the callback will remain the same in its life cycle, right? The callback will remain the same in its life cycle. The only option which user has is to clear the state or the clear the timeout or the clear the interval. So there is a inherently conflict with what React does and what browser API does. Browser APIs does not give a chance to update the callback, or basically to update the callback to reflect to or to point to the latest state, whereas React says that whenever a state changes, I will ensure that each callback or each UI gets updated or gets a reference to the latest state, whether it's an internal state or a state coming from the parent. Now, the solution to this problem is we need a way by which we can design our callback, right, to point to the latest state, and that callback should be picked by the use this set interval API without affecting the clear timer. So without even clearing the interval, our callback should be able to refer to the latest state which is coming from the React itself. And for that, what we can do is, so let me create a hook here. So this is our hook here, and as we did in the last video, we need something which ensures that our callback will remain the same between re-renders, or our callback does not cause to re-render or does not cause extra re-render for the React, right? And for that we can make use of the useRef, which ensures that our use effect can point to the latest callback without affecting the render cycle. So I can do that react.useRef react dot sorry one single a react dot useRef, and here I can have a reference to the callback. Okay, maybe before that, let's try to solve it here only so that we get a chance to understand what we are doing here. So let me create a callback ref here only. React dot use ref, and the type of it should be a function. It should take a function void type, and react dot use effect. So right, and it is dependent on the state, because we are fixing this case that when we are dependent on the external state, then what should happen is I should assign a new callback to this, and it should be set count state plus one. Set count state plus one. So this is our callback inside this ref. Now, because it's a ref, use ref, right? I can refer it here if it does exist, then I will call it, and now I have no dependency on the state, and that way this use effect will never run with the other state updates. This will get set interval gets registered once only on component load, right? And after every 1 second, this method will be triggered, and whatever is the inside that method, which will keep on updating as soon as the state updates. So this current will always have a pointer to the latest state of the state variable, and this function which we are declaring here, we are calling it here. Now let's see if it is working fine. I refresh it here. Yes, it is working fine. You see, this is getting updated after half a second, right? And this is actually updating state plus one. So after every half a second, it would be 1, 2, 3, and this would be 3 plus 1. Then 5, 6, 7, then it would be 7 plus 1. Basically, this is getting incremented plus 1 on the last value of the state. That is why these are both going parallelly or side by side to each other. So that is the solution to this particular problem. Now let's refactor it so that it is available as a reusable hook here. So what we are doing is we are getting a callback as a input param here. And what I will do is I will create a use effect next here. And then whenever the callback changes, I will assign the reference to the latest callback inside my reference. And so that is how we store the reference to the latest callback function which we have. Now, because it is a reference, I need not to define it as a dependency to my use effect hook, which will ensure that my use effect runs once only, or maybe on the change of this delay parameter only. So whenever the delay changes, then we definitely want to reset the last timer and trigger a new timer or trigger a new set interval with the latest delay. I hope that point is clear, that delay, whenever the delay is getting changes, in case that is an option in the UI that user can manage the delay, or on some browser conditions we are updating the delay, then we have to clear the last timer and register a new set interval. So here what we will do is interval and set interval, and my callback here, it will get started and it should execute after that particular delay. And as part of cleanup, what I will do is I will just clear interval which we just set up. And here what I will do is if callback ref dot current exists, I just have to call that. Cool. And maybe if I can make it conditional, like if delay exists, like delay is not null, only then we have to do all of this stuff. Because we might give a condition on the UI that completely remove the timer. In that case, what we can do is we can just reset the delay to null. And if it's null, then we can skip all this stuff basically. And because it's a return or the callback or the clear function, and it will from the last render phase, so this will get called and the interval will get called to clear the last interval, and the next one will be skipped. It will not be registered because delay does not exist when, in case we basis some condition, we set the delay to null. So I hope that makes sense. Now let's try to use it. So I will comment this particular part here. Maybe I will comment this particular part also, and I will use that hook here now. Use interval, and our callback method is set count state plus one, and it should be triggered after every 1000 millisecond or 1 second. This should also work fine. Let me refresh the screen. Yes, it is working fine. So after every second, whatever is the last value of the state, it is incrementing that by one. And that is why these both are going almost parallelly, that the values are same. We get to see the same after every 1000 millisecond or 1 second. And this gets incremented twice in a second. And here we see the incremented value in a second. So that is how we can use or create a custom hook named useInterval, which ensures or which mitigates the problem which does exist in the browser API when we use it inside the React. So set timeout and set interval both have the similar problems or the similar challenges, and both have the similar solution, which is making use of the use ref or a mutable object to say, so that our callback does not cause a re-render and always point to the latest state which is not its internals, or which is like the external state inside the component or coming from the parent. So I hope you get the solution here, and I would definitely recommend to go and watch the earlier video, which is like writing a custom hook on use timeout, or basically the set timeout browser API. So you can watch that as well. And I hope today's session was insightful and you get to learn new things here. And if that is the case, please consider like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And I am your friend Manish, and thanks for watching. Bye bye. Take care.